Hours after the first results of the Bolivian general elections were issued, the de facto government has removed 2 ministers from their posts following the calls for the dismissal by the Plurinational Legislative Assembly. The United States reported more than 46,000 new COVID-19 cases detected in 24 hours on Sunday. Political tensions continue to grow in Guinea on Monday, where the ruling party has condemned statements by the main opposition presidential candidate, who declared himself the winner of the elections held on Sunday. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is from the south. I'm Katrina Goss. Bolivia's de facto authorities have removed their government minister Arturo Murillo from office, as well as Minister of Education Victor Hugo Cárdenas, following the recent approval of a motion of censure by the Plurinational Legislative Assembly. The decision was approved by de facto President Janine Áñez, who had kept the 2 ministers in their posts, and comes after a warning from the President of the Senate, Eva Copa, and representatives of the movement towards socialism, who stressed that both ministers no longer had legal authority to remain in office. De facto Deputy Minister of Citizen Security, Wilson Santamaria, will temporarily take up Murillo's post, and Deputy Minister of Higher Education for Professional Training, Reinaldo Paredes, will take over from Cárdenas. Bolivia's Plurinational Assembly passed a motion of censure against Murillo and Cárdenas last week after they failed to attend hearings on alleged overcharged purchases of riot gear and the closing of the school year in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. Presidential candidate for Bolivia's Citizen Community Alliance, Carlos Mesa, recognized his defeat and the victory of the movement towards socialism's Luis Arce in the general elections held on Sunday.
The result of this quick count is very conclusive and very clear. The difference between the lead candidate and us, the citizen community, is wide, and it is up to those of us who believe in democracy and who said we would recognize the result whether it favored us or not, to recognize that there has been a winner in this election, and to establish our logic of moving forward in all conscience of democracy, and to say that it is a result that we accept, and it is a result that we consider, given the gap between the first and the second place candidates, will not change once we have the final and official results of the Supreme Electoral Tribunal.
And on recognizing his defeat in the first round, Carlos Mesa declared himself leader of the Bolivian opposition.
The Bolivian people have voted and have decided the mandate for each candidate. The citizen community has been given a very clear mandate to lead the democratic opposition in the 2020-25 period, and we are going to assume the responsibility with clarity, consciousness, and responsibility. We are the leadership of the opposition, and we will act as such, taking into account an important reality. It is a historic mission to build a democratic system in which the opposition has a voice, has initiatives, and advances the adequate control.
The presidential candidate for the movement towards socialism, Luis Arce, secured 52.4% of the vote, according to exit polls, followed by Carlos Mesa of the Citizen Community Alliance, who trailed behind with 31.5% of the vote. Believe Alliance, who secured just 14%. Let's take a look at what Luis Arce said on being elected President of Bolivia.
It has been a Pacific day in which most of the Bolivian people have gone to the polls to cast their vote. On our behalf, our commitment of our organization and our grassroots level organizations to which we respond to, we have a commitment to carry forward our plan of action. And as we've been saying, we will govern for all of the Bolivians. We will build a government of national unity. We will build the unity of our country. Additionally, during the day, we are recovering the faith in the Bolivian people to be able to carry out all types of economic activities that benefit the small, medium, and large companies, and also the public sectors, and all of the families of Bolivia that for these last 11 months have been in total uncertainty. We are going to work and we're going to reconduct our process of change with no hate and learning and overcoming our mistakes as the Movimiento Más.
And former Bolivian President Evo Morales, ousted in the coup last year, expressed his satisfaction on Monday following the victory of the MAS party and President-elect Luis Arce.
Sisters and brothers of Bolivia in the world, Luis Arce will be our president. The movement towards socialism, political instrument for the sovereignty of the peoples, will have a majority in the two chambers of the Plurinational Legislative Assembly. We recover the homeland. We will recover stability and progress. We will recover peace.
Colombia's indigenous and rural protest movement, known as AMINGA, is mobilizing this Monday in the capital Bogotá in defense of the right to life, democracy and peace. The AMINGA was set to march to the iconic Bolivar Square to demand a meeting with Colombian President Iván Duque, who's still refusing to personally address the demonstrators. The movement is calling on the president to provide explanations for the ongoing violence in the country and the failure to comply with the 2016 peace agreements. They hope to debate measures to stop the violence that has seen over 200 social leaders assassinated and at least 60 massacres this year alone. And the Chilean people continue to mobilize 1 year after the outbreak of widespread social unrest and in the lead up to the constitutional referendum. The popular movement staged several demonstrations on Sunday, rallying in Santiago de Chile's emblematic Dignity Square, where they continue to express their support for the approval of the redrafting of the country's constitution in the referendum scheduled for October 25th. The mobilizations also served to express their rejection of the continued repression carried out by the National Police Force. Chilean citizens continue to denounce the government of Sebastián Piñera and have intensified their demands for social equality and reform of the pension, health and education systems for over a year now. This Monday, long lines formed outside Miami Beach City Hall as residents of Florida participated in early voting ahead of November's U.S. presidential election. Meanwhile, both U.S. presidential candidates are rushing to gain voters' attention and support as the vote approaches. Our collaborator and journalist for the Empire Files, Abby Martin, offers more details on the latest events in the U.S. presidential race.
This is Abby Martin with your weekly election update for teleSUR English. Well, the 2020 election in the U.S. just gets worse. After Trump recovered from COVID with socialized medical care only available to him, the Presidential Debates Commission announced the next debate would be virtual due to Trump's diagnosis. But he refused to do it virtually, and Biden wouldn't negotiate. So instead of another debate, this great democracy got dueling town halls at the same time on different networks. At Biden's, in the midst of a climate emergency, he rejected the Green New Deal and defended fracking. And in response to a national Black Lives Matter uprising, he refuted the popular demand to defund the police, actually comparing cops to school teachers who simply need new tools. He also had some interesting words about how he would solve the issue of police murder.
Teach people how to de-escalate circumstances. De-escalate. So instead of anybody coming at you and the first thing you do is shoot to kill, you shoot them in the leg.
Shoot them in the legs? Wow, that's the same thing Israeli snipers brag about doing to Palestinian protesters. Moving on to Trump's town hall, where he again gave tacit endorsement for QAnon, a conspiracy that alleges top Democratic operatives are running a satanic pedophile ring and that high-profile arrests are just around the corner. Amazingly, these people believe Donald Trump, the same guy who sexualized his own daughter as a child and has over 20 sexual assault allegations against him, is the moral savior here. But that wasn't the only bizarre highlight from Trump's town hall. He was also asked about his constant promotion of conspiracists and white nationalist accounts on Twitter.
Just this week, you retweeted to your 87 million followers a conspiracy theory that Joe Biden orchestrated to have SEAL Team 6, the Navy SEAL Team 6, killed to cover up the fake death of bin Laden. Now, why would you send a lie like that to your followers? You retweeted
That was a retweet. That was an opinion of somebody, and that was a retweet. I'll put it out there. People can decide for themselves.
Absolutely amazing. And whether or not he even believes this stuff, this just shows how much he thrives on total confusion and paranoia. Trump is the chaos president. Of course, the corporate media considered the most newsworthy thing about these two town halls were the ratings. Headlines focused on how many more people tuned into Biden's than Trump's, as if that's somehow a metric of who we should vote for. Because that's all this election and every election really is. One big reality show. The absurdity of U.S. elections is unique in the world, but perfectly exemplary of American culture, in that it's nothing but entertainment spectacle, hyped up as the end-all be-all event of politics, designed to demobilize and depoliticize the masses. And an absurd amount of money is spent on this reality show. 2012 was the first time in U.S. history that candidates spent over $1 billion campaigning. Just 8 years later, Trump and Biden are projected to spend around $11 billion on their campaigns. Where the hell is all this money coming from? Average citizens are capped at donating just $6,000 to candidates. Well, not if you're someone like Sheldon Adelson, casino mogul and GOP megadonor, who just poured $75 million this week alone into Trump's re-election campaign. Meanwhile, Biden has a super PAC funded by corporate lobbyists for the healthcare industry, weapons contractors, and banking. This all shows who this election is really for. Wall Street is now hedging their bets on a predictable Biden after cashing in on their fat corporate tax cut from Trump, which, by the way, reduced corporate tax from 35% all the way to 21%. And Biden isn't really planning to roll it back. He's already assured his rich donors that nothing will fundamentally change for them if he is elected. The untold tragedy here, guys, is that tens of millions of Americans desperately need that fundamental change. What should have been huge election news this week has been ignored by the corporate media and both campaigns. New data shows that just since May, 8 million more Americans have fallen below the poverty line. And according to the U.S. Census, about 10% of American adults, or 22 million, reported they didn't have enough to eat within the past week. 5 million more than before the pandemic. But neither Trump nor Biden is campaigning to these tens of millions of people with a plan that could help them. All that is offered to America's poor is the opportunity to vote for one of two millionaires every 4 years.
This Sunday, the United States surpassed 46,000 new COVID-19 cases registered in a single day. According to official epidemiological reports, the United States continues to hit an average of 50,000 new cases per day. This Sunday, authorities reported 46,925 new COVID-19 cases and over 500 fatalities. The US has now registered over 8.4 million confirmed coronavirus cases and a death toll of almost 225,000. The Austrian Chancellor Monday said new federal restrictions would limit private gatherings to 6 people indoors and 12 people outdoors from Friday in a bid to slow the spread of the novel coronavirus. Chancellor Sebastian Kurz said that professional events such as football games and opera concerts will only be possible with assigned seats and mask wearing throughout the activities and without food and drink being served. There will be a maximum of 1,000 people indoors and 1,500 outdoors. Daily increases of confirmed infections have risen sharply in recent days in the country of about 9 million people, with spikes reaching up to 1,750 cases per day, the highest numbers since the start of the pandemic.
Additionally, the federal government will act where the majority of infections occur, at private gatherings. Starting Friday midnight, indoor gatherings will be limited to 6 people, that is 6 adults. Outdoor gatherings will be limited to a maximum of 12 people. This applies basically everywhere, at the restaurant just as during the yoga session. The next month will become a red-white-red tour de force, simply because all of us in Austria and Europe are already tired of Corona. But it will take months before we can really achieve a breakthrough with a vaccine and start a trend of reversal. The next month will be challenging.
Political tensions continue to grow in Guinea on Monday, where President Alpha Conde's rally of the Guinean People Party has condemned statements by opposition presidential candidate Salou Dalin Diallo, who declared himself the winner of the elections held on Sunday.
The RPG, ARC, EN, CL, the allied parties and its supporters, respectful of the institutions of the Republic, unreservedly and with the utmost firmness condemn the irresponsible and dangerous declaration of the President of the EUFDG, Edash Salou Dalin Diallo, by which he proclaimed himself elected in the presidential election of October 18, 2020. The RPG, ARC, EN, CL and its allies and support movements call on the competent institutions to take all necessary measures to prevent disorder and prevent any desire to destabilize the country and its legitimate institutions. RPG, ARC, EN, CL calls on its activists, voters and all citizens of Guinea to remain calm, serene and mobilized in order to preserve our democratic gains and safeguard the institutions of the Republic.
And residents in Guinea's capital, Conakry, have voiced concerns over an electoral dispute between the presidential candidates following the elections that took place on Sunday.
I want peace in Guinea, peace only that. What is not good, Guineans must be united. The Malinke, the Soso, the Baga people, we are the same. That's what's good. When there is war in the country cannot move forward.
Some are afraid, but I know Guinea. It is the politicians who will bring tension in Guinea. But otherwise, we Guineans have nothing. For example, yesterday in our polling station, we went there. We bickered among ourselves, but the politicians are the ones who will come and mix us up. The election really went very well. The citizens did their bit. They voted in large numbers. There is no conflict, nothing. But all I ask is that the politicians should also pay their part and not ruin the country. Because if the country works, it works for everyone, all Guineans, all communities. Because Guinea belongs to everyone.
Students took to the streets in the economic capital of Ivory Coast, Abidjan, on Monday to protest the rise in university costs ahead of the country's presidential election set to take place on October 31st. Security forces clashed with students who had barricaded several streets in the neighbourhood where the Felix Houphouët-Boigny University is located. The demonstration was called by the Student Federation of Ivory Coast, which stressed opposition to the financial contributions demanded from university students for their studies. Meanwhile, representatives from the Economic Community of West African States have called on Ivorian authorities and opposition figures to ease the tensions, while urging two opposition parties to seriously reconsider their decision to boycott the election and their call on supporters to engage in civil disobedience. The United Nations has expressed deep concern over the humanitarian situation in the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region and called to protect civilian lives in the conflict zones. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres condemned last Friday's events, which led to the deaths of civilians, including minors, in the Azerbaijani town of Guinea. He also stressed that both Armenia and Azerbaijan have ignored repeated calls from the international community to respect the ceasefire and urged both sides to commit to talks. The latest hostilities broke out on September 27th, but the root of the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan in the region dates back to 1988, before the dissolution of the Soviet Union. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on Monday stressed that continued fighting between Azerbaijan and Armenia in the Nagorno-Karabakh region was unacceptable and called for a mechanism to enforce the ceasefire as both sides reported new attacks.
After the meeting in Moscow, our hopes were not fulfilled. Military actions continued. Attacks on civilian infrastructures, localities continued. It is unacceptable. For the ceasefire to work, a ceasefire control mechanism should be established, which we made sure after 2 treaties have been adopted and didn't help radically change the situation on the ground. We, in particular, our defense ministry is actively working on it, with colleagues from Azerbaijan and Armenia. I hope such a mechanism will be agreed as soon as possible.
And we've come to the end of this news brief, but remember you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For teleSUR English, I'm Katrina Goss, and thank you for watching.